to end. We like to make these presentations about 50 minutes so that you have time to prepare for your next meeting. We're all on Zoom these days. We all go from back-to-back meetings. I don't personally like that. I like to have a few minutes to prepare. So that's why we try to keep these to about 50, 55 minutes at most. I am going to share my screen for a second because also we do a quick little ad on ClearUps to start these meetings. I am Caroline McCaffrey. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of ClearUps. George, who is my co-founder and is administering this event, is the other co-founder. ClearUps is a third-party risk management platform. We started, I'm a lawyer by background, and we started because I kept feeling the pain point of security questionnaires. So when I met George, I said to him, is there a way that we can solve this problem? And so we built this third-party risk management platform, but from the perspective of a vendor. So a lot of platforms are built from the buyer perspective, meaning you're trying to conduct third-party risk on your vendors. We actually started from the opposite viewpoint, vendor being subjected to third-party risk management and how to help them. So that's a little bit about ClearUps. Ad over. I'm sure you're all glad about that. So let me go ahead and get this started. So thank you everyone for joining. Again, this is Privacy and Security in the Metaverse, a focused discussion on cryptocurrencies. I am joined by three distinguished guests that I'm so excited to be talking to. First, totally in line with privacy and security practices, we have Accidental CISO, who we will call AC. AC is joining us as Accidental CISO. He will not be putting on his video, hopefully by calling him. I didn't just do anything that was against the privacy, that violated his privacy. But I think you'll notice that he is him by his voice. But I'm gonna have all of you give introductions in a second, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows that when I say AC, I'm talking about Accidental CISO, and we're so glad to have him. We're also joined by Justin Daniels. I met Justin through his partner in crime. He is very well versed on a lot of these topics that we're going to be covering today, and I'm so excited to have him here. He'll give you his background, but he's the one who made me aware of the breach at the Rona network. So interesting perspectives, and I believe you're a lawyer by background as well as being someone as well as cybersecurity, right, Justin? Yeah. Okay, and then finally, but not least, is Scott Gettleman, who is our third panelist today. Scott is a former commodities trader turned into a cryptocurrency expert and a self-taught security expert on this topic. So let me go in reverse order in terms of you introducing yourself. So spend like a minute on yourself. So Scott, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, well, thanks for doing this panel and thanks for having me, first of all. So like Carolyn said, I was commodities trader for many years. And then just through trading, I saw this thing, Bitcoin, come along. And at first I just thought it was another thing to trade. But then actually when I did my research on it, I saw the value of it. And the value is you could send money, currency to anyone, anywhere, at any time. I didn't need to go to a third party. I didn't need a bank. I didn't need permission from anybody. This is a permissionless network. And so when you realize the power of that, if I have a friend in Iran or Cuba that, our governments aren't friendly, but I'm friendly with you and you need something, I can provide that for you and nobody could stop it. And so that's what drew me in. And then once, DeFi and smart contracts and everything just expanded around it, it really sunk me down the rabbit hole.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Justin.
Good morning, everybody. Justin Daniels, as Caroline pointed out, yes, I am an attorney, but I have done a lot of work in the crypto space since 2017 when I got started with crypto mining, and then I expanded into NFTs, and now I've started to work helping companies with permissioned blockchains. So I kind of sit at the intersection of what I call the BLT sandwich of crypto, which is the business, legal, and technology, and how all of those interrelate, and how do we balance all that out so that the industry can move forward? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. AC.
Hey, and yes, I did accidentally become a CISO it happens a lot. I'm more of a crypto enthusiast here. I think these other guys are, definitely crypto experts. I got interested in it back around 2017. I wish I had not thought it was dumb before that. I had friends as early as 2012, 13 telling me about it, and I didn't get it, but I went to a meetup with some friends at a bar, and they were talking about this in 2017, and it finally clicked and kind of blew my mind, and realized this was going to be the future of commerce, whether people realized it or not. And so better start learning about it. Back then, I got into privacy coins. I realized that pretty quickly, the open nature of Bitcoin and those types of things, and the value that has, but at the same time, the need for privacy, which brought me to Monero. So I'm sort of a enthusiast with Monero as well. But yeah, and going forward, NFTs have me really interested. My wife is an artist, and I'm looking at ways that she can take her physical art and use NFTs as a way to sort of sell physical and digital art, both, that she creates.
Interesting. Oh, I didn't even know that. All right. Well, so let's start with a little bit of lingo definitions, and because there's a lot of lingo in crypto, and I think all of you probably could pick out a few terms and just start. I mean, we could probably spend the whole session on it. But AC, actually, you just talked about privacy coins, right? So I would love to know what you meant by that, or what does that mean?
Yeah. So the difference with Bitcoin or some of the more open coins and the privacy coins, with the open coins, every transaction on the network can be inspected by anyone, where the privacy coins allow those transactions then to be private, and you can transfer value from one person to another, and only those two people involved in the transaction are going to have knowledge of what that transaction was, so that you can send those coins. And when that happens, like, for instance, the Monero tokens have to be completely fungible. So everyone is identical to every other one, so that you can't trace which ones were which involved in what transactions, the way you can with Bitcoin. So that's, hopefully that's understandable. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
I mean, I would love, Scott, how about, I'm going to pick on you for a second. What do
So
you
when you
tell
do-
us? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
So when you go like do a transaction on Ethereum, you go to Etherscan, and you can see every transaction, who it went to, what it was, what was the value, how much gas it cost. With a privacy coin, that's not the case. And so that's one of the main differences.
And with coins like Monero, I should add that there are multiple keys for these. So you can have a transaction key that you can give a transaction view key to somebody to prove that you have spent the money. There's also wallet view keys you give your accountant, for instance, that will allow them to view all of your transactions still, but they can't actually initiate transactions. So there's multiple keys within that particular system that allow different levels of access as well, to deal with the fact that sometimes you do need to expose some of this information to different people for different purposes.
And when you use the term keys, I mean, I'm just going to ask maybe it might be a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is that really just another word for passwords?
Pretty much, yes. You have a public key and a private key. So the public key will act like your email address. And now with like Ethereum naming solution, you could have like scott.eth, so you don't have to have a long string. And then the private key will be a string of letters and numbers, and that's your password.
Okay. Well, so then let's back up a second. Let's say I'm interested in investing in cryptocurrency. I have never done it before. I've heard of Bitcoin. I've heard of ETH, but I have no idea what to even do, where to get started. And someone says, you need to set up a wallet. Well, what does that mean? Like, how do you even take us through just buying them?
So if you've never participated in cryptocurrency ever, and this is your first introduction, the best thing to do, you have to go to a centralized exchange like a Coinbase, a Gemini, Kraken, and then you set up an account like you would on E-Trade or Fidelity. And from there, they'll set up a wallet for you. and that's a centralized wallet. That's an exchange. You're on an exchange. It's an exchange wallet. And so you could buy a Bitcoin, ETH there. And then from there, if you want to participate in the decentralized, in the DeFi space, then you would have to set up like a Metamask or a third-party extension wallet on the internet, or a cold wallet. But if you've never done any of this before, just buy some Bitcoin, buy some Ether, transfer it to a Metamask wallet or something like that, and just do very small and play around with it. And just so if you do make an error, you know, it's a $50 error instead of a $5,000 error. And like anything else, the more you do it, the more you become comfortable with it. But definitely go to like a Coinbase, Gemini, something that has reputational value, and then go from there.
So we already have a question from the audience. And by the way, everyone who's listening, please feel free to add questions in the chat. I think we're more than happy to have questions, come in and address them at the moment, in the moment. So Stephanie asks, can you explain more about Metamask and a cold wallet? What do you mean by that?
So there's hot wallets and cold wallets. Okay. A cold wallet is something like a ledger where you hook up to the internet and you take it away like a UBS stick, right? When you want to use it, you plug it in. When you don't, and you keep it, please secure it. Don't just keep it on your desktop. But if it's going to hold a lot of cryptocurrencies, you want a good spot for it. Okay. And the advantage to that is it's not connected to the internet. You're not going to get phished, and you're not going to fall for virus, and there's not going to be virus and all that. A hot wallet is connected to the internet. It's if you want to think of it like email. Okay. You could use it when you want. You log in, you log out, you could send coins, you can participate. But with a hot wallet, you're exposed. You're online. So you have to have your best practices. You have to have really strong password. It comes with a seed phrase. You have to make sure you keep your seed phrase, because if your computer crashes and if you don't have your seed phrase, you can lose your crypto. If you don't have your seed phrase.
It's probably important to note that the wallet holds the keys. It doesn't actually hold the crypto. Like your crypto coins are not on your computer or on your phone. They're represented on the ledger in the blockchain, but the wallet is what's holding your keys. So that wallet could even be paper. It could be a paper document that has the information for those keys to be able to restore and access those again later. That's one of the things that confused me early on was talking about the wallet and, well, where are the coins actually? Are they on my computer, or they stay on the blockchain? And it took me a little bit early on to realize, no, the wallet is just the key store and sort of the software that facilitates accessing and viewing the information that's on the blockchain, but that the coins themselves still stay on the blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah. So even if you do lose your MetaMask for some reason, if you have like your paper wallet and you have your keys on it, you can get access back to your coins.
Okay. And then you used another term that I think is worth explaining, which is DeFi. What do you mean by, I think you call it decentralized finance, right? So, but what?
Yeah. So we all know what centralized finance is. That's what we do. We do the banking, you go to whatever bank you go. When you're in decentralized finance, you're your bank. So if I want to go to like a protocol like Compound or Balancer, I could lend my coins out and get interest on my coins, or I can provide liquidity to an automatic market with someone's liquidity tokens, and I will get interest on my coins. And so when you participate in DeFi, you act as your own bank. So instead of the bank deciding what interest you get or no interest at this point, I could lend out my coins and get interest for myself. Okay. And be a participant in the ecosystem.
Hey, Carolyn, I think for our audience to really understand what's revolutionary about blockchain at its core, whether we talk about NFTs, whether we talk about decentralized finance, is blockchain technology is all about disrupting the middleman. So when Scott talks about decentralized finance, he's talking about being able to buy financial products directly from the seller. Traditionally, a bank is in between us, and they're a central repository for all of the information. With blockchain technology, the blockchain is, in most cases, the repository of the information, but it's available to everyone. It's democratizing access to information. When we talk about non-fungible tokens today, we're also going to talk about the ability to sell art, to sell music, to sell all kinds of things that people create, not having to go to an art dealer or through a music label. We're creating this entire ecosystem, which disrupts the role of the middleman. And so when I think about all of this, that to me is the fundamental concept that people need to wrap their head around when you're saying, why is this important from a business standpoint? You're disrupting the middleman and all of the costs and inefficiencies of having that intermediary. And then the question becomes, well, who becomes that intermediary? And that's when we start to go down trying to understand how the blockchain works when there's this no longer this third party supposed trusted intermediary.
I mean, it's clearly full of a lot of lingo and a lot of, we could spend probably, like I said, hours on it, but I want to ask you, Justin, one thing about that point. What does immutable mean on the blockchain? Because I think that might be important for this discussion.
The idea of what's immutable on a blockchain is once that you have validated the transaction and you put it onto that blockchain, which is nothing more than think of the checkbook when we used to write checks. It's a digital database that records transactions. The idea behind it is it's not going to be changed. It cannot be changed. It's there and you build blocks next to it, but that information cannot be changed and it's there for everyone to view. That's not been the case before when the bank holds all the information. If I want to send $20 to Caroline, it's the bank who does all that, holds all that information. And so the idea now is everyone has access to the same information, which can't be changed.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So let's, there's a few questions in here. And I think there's a really good one that I'd love to address. And let's just go ahead and I'm going to deviate from the schedule and I'm going to ask this question. So Metamask requirements include, it can read and change all your data on all websites and modify data you copy and paste. I'm assuming this is from their privacy policy. I actually have not set up a Metamask wallet, so I haven't reviewed their privacy policy, but the question is, can you comment on this? Really interesting that is a disclosure on their privacy policy. It seems a little bit over encompassing to me. I don't know. What do you think, Justin? I'll pick on you.
I think the privacy policies that you read on some of the sites are kind of really required reading. Like, I'll give you an example. OpenSea, if you read their privacy policy or just their terms of use, they make no representation whatsoever about the identity of the buyer and seller, the quality of the asset. It's completely caveat emptor, buyer beware. And I don't think people appreciate that when they go and trade on a place like OpenSea. Similarly, with Metamask, we get into a discussion of, well, I set up a Metamask account, so I had to provide some information. So now my information is associated with that wallet. So now if Metamask has a hack or has a security issue, there's the opportunity to figure out that, oh, this wallet belongs to Justin. And so one of the interesting paradoxes I'm sure we'll talk about is when you really peel back the layers in certain respects, how decentralized are aspects of the blockchain? And I think the answer to that is not as decentralized as the people who drink the Kool-Aid would like to let you think. Think of Coinbase. They are a common point of failure for all the people who have an account there. And so what I would say is when you're looking at MetaMask and you're looking at some of these privacy disclosures, you need to think about that and not just be persuaded by the lingo of decentralization, because these privacy policies and other terms of use, as you've correctly identified, tell you that it's not as private as you'd like to think, and it's not as always as decentralized as people would like you to believe.
Yeah, yeah.
With the MetaMask access that it's requiring, that that was referred to in the question about being able to change data on websites and modify and copy paste, is that possibly a limitation required because of the way browsers work today? As a browser plugin, MetaMask as a wallet has to be able to interact with a website like OpenSea or one of these other marketplaces to be able to pull data in off that site, to be able to put data into that site to facilitate the transaction. And I feel like, right, the fact that it needs that broad permissions from your browser is because web browsers don't currently have a good way to sandbox and allow you to say this plugin can only work with this site or something like that.
I mean, it's an excellent point, AC. So as the virtual CISO in the room, do you advise clients or people in general when it comes to browser extensions, how to protect yourself from the fact that a browser extension does need to read? You know, you have that extension. I think you're exactly right. I mean, ClearOps has a browser extension, so we went through this debate internally.
Yeah, browser extensions are software, and they're, you know, from a corporate policy standpoint, they're going to fall under your guidelines for sources of software and approved software and those types of things. And the different organizations are going to manage those at different levels. You know, very large organizations typically have the sophisticated controls and tools to be able to actually restrict that, whereas very small businesses tend to not. So it's something that you have to be very, very aware of. And I think, you know, a lot of larger corporations probably do best to not allow extensions like this on work laptops, especially, you know, because you get those environments where you've got people doing personal things on work laptops and vice versa.
Yep. Yeah, and I will just add to it my own recommendation, which is with any browser extension, you have the choice to limit their ability to read what's on your browser, and that you have to take an action in order for them to read the specific tab or site that you're on. So you just click on the browser extension, you'll see that there's some permissions involved there. So that might be able to minimize Metamask's access. But I want to move on. I had a question prepared for the next topic, but I'm going to actually skip that question, which was, are cryptocurrencies necessary for the metaverse? You know, I would love to explore that if we have time at the end, but right now I want to jump to another audience question because it was the next topic after that one, to discuss the Ronin network breach. I mean, this literally happened a couple of days ago. We're still finding out information about it. Second largest potential breach. No, I call it, I don't mean to call it a breach, incident. We don't know if it's a breach yet, we assume, but it's an incident. Justin, I know you've done a lot. I mean, you're the one who made me aware of it. So I'm gonna jump to you again, but let's have a discussion about it.
Well, I think in order to discuss this, we need to talk a little bit about the other unique aspect of what makes blockchain technology so revolutionary, and that's what's called the consensus mechanism. So remember how I said earlier that if we take out the middleman, how do we validate that things are, how do we validate transactions? Well, that's what's called the consensus mechanism. And the idea behind it, it's supposed to be trustless. And you have different kinds, there's different ways to do it. Proof of work, proof of stake. I won't go totally down that, but here's why this is relevant back to our question about Ronin. So basically what Ronin is they have created a game where basically you mint NFTs of monsters that you go and you can earn cryptocurrency by creating these NFTs and slaying monsters in this game. So, okay, we have this game, but we need to interact with a blockchain where you get the crypto. So 1, 2, we need a bridge. So this bridge blockchain sits between these two. Think of this, the Golden Gate Bridge. That would be the metaphor here. So how do we validate the exchange of this cryptocurrency? Well, the way that they did it is, we have 9 specific validators, and you have to have 5 of them agree on something, and voila, the cryptocurrency can change hands. What appears to have happened, and I want to say we're early in an investigation, and having handled ransomware incidents, I don't like to speculate because it's like the weather in Colorado, it can change hourly. But what I want to say is 5 of the validators were able to be hacked. One of which was one where they said, hey, we're going to use this other party that's not part of Ronin, this decentralized autonomous organization. And then in the middle of it, they're like, we're not going to do that anymore. But what they failed to do was shut off the keys that allowed them to do things on behalf of this DAO. So when they were compromised, they also were able to compromise this 5th validator. And now, once the hacker has the private keys, that's what to be one of the main takeaways here in this conversation. Those are literally the digital keys to the kingdom. So once they had that, they were able to transfer the ETH and other cryptocurrency into their own account to the tune of $625 million. And the network was not aware of it for an entire week. So I can't wait to hear what our AC has to say about that, because that's a huge lag time. It indicates to me there weren't controls in place to measure and start to detect all of this. But I'm going to flip it to AC to kind of fill in that side of the story. But the bottom line here is, if you don't configure things properly, if you don't eliminate passwords and other things properly, these hackers do this all day, and they will find the vulnerability and they will exploit them.
Yep. There was, I see one question. Somebody says, how is this related to the 51% rule? So that sort of applies here, is if you are able to control those validators, you control enough of the validation pool, you can sway the decision of which transactions are legitimate and which ones are not. So you can take a transaction and sort of ram it through because you have enough control over that. But I think you're exactly right. The fact that this didn't get detected quickly should tell us that there's not nearly enough monitoring on this, watching for transactions, watching for things that could be suspicious or anomalous in there. But and that's something that, with this technology being so new, it is difficult to do that, and they're going to have to build special tools to watch the blockchain and watch for those types of things and log these transactions that happen in a way that then this particular organization can make usable. And that's one of the challenges we have in security in general, is like there's a lot of information we can pull out of all sorts of different systems. Making that information usable and actionable is really difficult. It's why when people buy tools and they don't configure them correctly, they don't get the full value out of it in a business environment. And I think in this blockchain space, I mean, the tools even have to be built in-house, custom. This isn't an off-the-shelf solution that they're just going to go buy and then misconfigure to not see this stuff. Like they got to build this stuff from the ground up.
That's a good point. Yeah. And Scott, I'd love to hear your take on this particular incident with Ronin when it comes to investing in cryptocurrency. Like, how does this affect your sort of your view on their reputation?
It's definitely a reputational hit, but it happens, unfortunately. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Polygon was hit with another 100, that was close to the same thing, 600 million attack. But the hacker, or however you want to characterize, returned the money for reward. People still use it. I mean, in regular parlance, I mean, banks get hacked, credit cards target. So it just depends. I mean, there was a wormhole attack 4 weeks ago, and Jump Trading stepped in and replenished $300 million. So I think people who are still going to use it, maybe they'll be a little bit more careful, and maybe it's like, in the back of your mind, hey, they already got hacked, they'll fix it now. So it's just, in general, bridges are really hard to secure right now. They're really hard. So anytime you're bridging anywhere, you really have to be real careful. And there's, Chain Analysis does all the analysis on it and comes back with all the suggestions, but typically people don't fix things until they're broken. Nobody takes the time to relook through the code, do an analysis until something goes wrong. So I think that as an industry in general, you have to be more proactive and test your product a little bit more. But as far as investing, I mean, millions of people still use it. So I would say, now that it got knocked down, maybe it's a buying opportunity, to be honest with you.
Interesting perspective.
So Carolyn, I think there's one other thing to note that Scott brought up, an interesting point. In this latest Ronin hack, as well as the one that Scott talked about, the people that operate the exchange where it happened, they're willing to reimburse people so that they're made whole, so they still want to use the exchange, which to me begs the question is, how profitable must those exchanges be that the people are willing to do that? And similar to that, are we going to have another situation where the opportunity to monetize this is so great that if you're a company, you're going to say, you know what, I'll take the Zoom approach. I'll get big so quick, so fast that when I do get hit with regulations or that a hack, it's just a cost of doing business. And so that might be an economic viewpoint, but I know that you and other people that are in both the privacy and security industry, because I know we're going to talk a little bit about WorldCoin, may take a very different view of that approach, but it just begs the question when you see they're willing to reimburse, it just makes you think, well, how much must they be making that they're willing to do that? And what does that have for implications as to whether or not they'll really pay attention to privacy and security until, as Scott pointed out, they're required?
Yeah. I mean, why not spend $100,000 securing your systems versus 600,000 paying someone who's going, or essentially paying the hacker, right? I mean, that's what they're doing.
But I think AC hit on it. If I want to monitor the Ronin blockchain, we'll use them as an example. I can't go to Splunk or somewhere and get an off-the-shelf type of way to do it. I have to design it. So if I have to design it, now that delays my entry into the market. And right now, this market is all about speed to market. And as AC and the rest of us know, security and privacy are inconvenient. So there is not an incentive for companies to build it in, which is why I suspect it will take regulations to get that to happen. And as we are seeing, privacy regulations are spreading. So are SEC regulations, and this is all happening because Congress can't get their stuff together. And the unintended consequence of that is, will it impede all of this innovation because all of that regulatory compliance is difficult? But hey, that's why we have a great privacy ops industry with what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, I want to pick on one more point on this, and I know we're spending probably too much time on it, but if the ledger is immutable, right? Like if these transactions where someone steals money and puts it in a blockchain ledger where you can see that they took it, then how is maybe the lack of privacy helping in the security point? I'm asking this question in a roundabout way, but essentially what I have read is that we know that the hacker who stole from Ronin still has a lot of that money still in their account, which, another type of ransomware we would know. So is the lack of privacy helping?
I think the lack of privacy is definitely helping, because you can see where the funds are, you can see where they're going. If they're going on, Coinbase, FTX, Binance, they could blacklist those funds, they could freeze the funds. And with the public ledger, so you can see even if they move them to a different wallet and keep moving, no matter where you move them, you could track it. So just because it's a blockchain doesn't, people think privacy and anonymity, but they know where the money is and where you.
Yep. Kind of losing you a little bit, Scott. Hopefully you're I don't know if it's your bandwidth, but I think I got your point, and I kind of asked a bit of a question that sort of led down the path of challenging that privacy needs to be added to blockchain, which of course is strange coming from a privacy attorney. I do want to address one quick question in chat, which is, do these companies have insurance for these breaches?
They have a printing press of coins. They don't need insurance.
Justin, why did you laugh?
Oh, I laughed because talking to the insurance companies about insuring hacks on a blockchain, let alone the traditional type of companies, they don't insure that. What's gone on in the cyber insurance industry over the last 18 months, it's been it's been a bloodletting. So they just restrict premiums, those go up, underwriting gets harder, but that's in the realm of what we know. In the blockchain realm, you can't get an insurance company to insure your digital wallet. So that's why I kind of laugh, because the days of thinking, oh, we'll just transfer risk to the insurance company. Yeah, not going to happen.
Yeah. AC, why in your experience, because I know you understand this, why has cyber insurance gotten so difficult over the last 18 months?
I think honestly, ransomware and ransomware as a service specifically has been driving that. What I have seen with clients that I've been working with, the insurance questionnaires when they're renewing are getting much more difficult. The underwriters are looking at a lot more information to judge the risk. As the other guys mentioned, costs are going up, coverage is going down. Something I've also been hearing from other folks, I don't have firsthand direct knowledge of this, but I've heard it from a couple different people now that companies that they've worked with have had trouble with getting insurance policies that will cover the full amount, and they've had to start aggregating policies from multiple carriers through brokers and other things in order to get enough coverage for what they need because of limits and things that are being placed on things. So all of this stuff, even for just traditional businesses that aren't in these cutting edge spaces, is getting difficult. So to be able to get insurance for these types of things, I think these companies are going to be predominantly self-insuring until there's enough regulation and we have things like, FDIC that starts applying to crypto. But I don't know if that's going to happen because of the problem that the blockchain is what it is, and recouping those things, refunding the money, like the bank has to do it out of their money. They can't just go reverse a transaction on the blockchain because of that. So
Yeah.
And Caroline, I'm sorry, one last point, because I want the audience to get this, is if you heard what AC said about having something FDI insured like our bank account, well, in order to get there, what else is the government going to want if they're going to FDIC insure? They're going to want to know the identity of the people behind those bank accounts with AML and KYC. And it's not a large leap to see us going there, because remember, the government's also, with the Biden executive order, starting to think about central bank digital currency. So think about what happens if the government knows all the times when you are transacting with your CBDC. And so again, really some enormous privacy ramifications from that.
That's a whole new discussion, CBDCs.
right.
Programmable money.
What is CBDC? CBDC.
Central bank digital currency.
Okay.
And basically it's another rabbit hole, but it's programmable money. And so they could pretty much program it to do. You'd say they wouldn't, but after you see what happens with sanctions and, what if they sanction you individually? They could freeze every asset you have. So.
Okay. Well, I have to jump to WorldCoin because of this. I mean, it's sort of I feel like that's what it's trying to do, but be a world version of it versus a state actor version of it, right? A WorldCoin, I wrote a bit of a blog post about. I was introduced to WorldCoin last week because I saw a article that said that A16Z and Khosla Ventures were investing a significant amount of money into WorldCoin, and WorldCoin essentially takes an eye scan in exchange for free WorldCoin. And the name WorldCoin itself implies, as I jokingly refer to it, the one coin to rule them all, right? It's like the world's coin. And so I am fascinated by their decision to try to market themselves on privacy, and yet they're taking an eye scan in order for you to get this free WorldCoin. So Scott, when I mentioned WorldCoin to you, you said to me something that was sort of interesting, which was, it's kind of creepy.
So if the product is free, you're the product. Right. So you're going to be the product. It's very creepy. It's, to me anyway.
And when something is creepy to me, that means you feel like your privacy is being violated. Justin, what do you think?
When I read your blog post, I thought about it and I'm like, oh, this is another version of Clearview AI.
Oh, don't get me started on them.
Right. But when you're going to get the iris scan, just like Scott's point, this morning I was driving my daughter to school and they were advertising, hey, if you want to watch certain groups at the Masters, download our app. Otherwise you can't see, they follow certain golfer groups because the Masters is a big deal here. Mm-hmm. And I told my daughter's like, why would they do that? I was like, why do you think? Oh, they want the data. Right.
Yep.
This to me is the same thing. And I think that the thing we have to discuss is I think you've got a generation of younger people growing up, which is where all this blockchain and metaverse has become hugely popular. Their view of privacy is very different. And then when I have conversations with people, they're just like, oh, well, I have nothing to hide. If people want to see stuff, they want to see that. And I'm like, well, how do you feel if I have complete access to your email inbox for 3 months and your text, and I can see exactly what you're saying, then they start to pause a little bit.
Yep. Yep. AC, in your practice, I am sure you see people confusing privacy and security. I
Yes.
think that WorldCoin is not actually a privacy company. I think they're a security company in the sense of how they're trying to sell this. What do you think?
Yeah, they are similar and different. It's difficult to explain kind of the difference, but privacy really comes down to the how you classify different types of data so that you can treat different pieces of data differently, and then you can protect them appropriately with different security controls and safeguards. So privacy is about the understanding what data can be used to identify a specific individual. And where it gets difficult is one piece of information may not necessarily be private, but as you start to put more and more pieces together, they can become identifying. There may be more than one John Smith in the world, but as soon as you combine that with a few other pieces of information, an address or something like that, now you're starting to get to the private side to be able to identify a single person. And as I was looking at WorldCoin, one of the things that I was struggling to figure out is how the eye scan exactly was being used, whether that was what was generating the entropy, the randomness that was being used to generate the wallet, the cryptographic keys, or if those were being created still in a traditional way using the regular wallet generation algorithms, and that they were calling it a hash, basically a cryptographic summary of your retina scan. That summary, that unique ID that they get from your eyeballs, is that just being linked to your wallet now that you create your wallet? Here's your wallet. Okay, yep, we've confirmed this wallet to this person, and we're only going to allow that ID to be linked with one wallet. So as I was researching this when you had mentioned it, because WorldCoin is pretty new, that's what I still haven't been able to figure out on this. Is the retina scan being used to generate the wallet itself, or is that just an ID that gets linked to a wallet that's being generated in a more traditional way? And I don't know if that has any bearing on my opinion on privacy. I need to think about this a little bit more with the privacy side of this. If that wallet ID was not generated by your eyeballs itself, like somebody couldn't necessarily photograph your eyeballs and come up with your key and steal everything out of your wallet at that point, or identify that wallet is yours unless they had access to the link as well. And they were talking about using that link as for ostensibly a good purpose, is one wallet per person, so they can evenly distribute the money and do it fairly so that nobody gets paid twice or something. But
Yep, exactly. I mean, I'm cognizant of the time. My understanding of it is that the eyeball creates an embedding, which is then used to prove that you're an individual, which will then give you a certificate that allows you to create a wallet. But there's other sort of caveats that are going into this. So for example, because it's a machine learning technique, they have to build their models. And so they're not actually just collecting an eyeball right now. They're actually taking pictures of people. They're taking videos of people doing a 360, and they're also taking pictures of your face. And so they're doing a whole body scan initially in order for you to for them to build their models, which they will eventually perfect into a point where it's only going to take your eye scan. So anyway, I could go on and on and on about them. It's not for me to sit here and talk about it, but cognizant of everyone's time, I want each one of you to give however many tips you want, but tips to people who are thinking about investing in cryptocurrencies. Currently investing in cryptocurrencies. What are your best security tips? And Scott, I'm particularly interested in you because since you're a self-learner, and one of the things about this space is we all now, because there's no bank in the middle, we now all have to take on the burden of the security of our own money versus now relying on a third party. And then if you have any privacy recommendations too, I mean, we are privacy and security in the metaverse, not just security. So Scott, I'll start with you and then we'll go to Justin and AC.
Yeah. So first thing is you have to do your own research. You have to be really good at researching not only what wallet you're going to use, but also your passwords. Go to how strong is my password? See how long it takes to crack your password. Write them down. Get a password manager. Don't use the same password for each application you're using. If you want to get involved in crypto, just start small. Start an exchange. Buy a little bit of crypto. Send it to a friend. Send it back. Just get the basic functionalities of it down before you move on to like actually putting more money into it. But secure yourself. I mean, use a VPN, use a proxy if you want. But just the practices that you use in Web 2, times them by 10 or 20 in Web 3, and go from there. And if anybody, my email's out there, feel free to reach out to me. I don't want to take up too much time because I know you're running against the clock. But just do your own research, strong passwords, VPNs, and take it from there.
Justin, your next advice for our guests.
So I'm going to be a little more granular on what Scott is referring to as identity access management. So I do recommend the use of a password manager, but I recommend doing it in a unique way. So for example, use LastPass, put your password on there, but then have another phrase. Maybe it's clear ops, maybe it's fun, love. And that's what's in your head. So every time you use password manager, it puts the password down, but then you add the part to it, because that way, even if your password gets hacked, they don't have the whole password. Then on top of that, you're going to want to use multi-factor authentication, but you're going to want to use token-based because that deals with SIM swapping, which is a common form of cyber attack. And then the other thing is you want two kinds of wallets as you start to evolve. There is the wallet you do transactions in, but maybe you use a different email for it. Don't use your email. How many times do you use the same email for multiple things? So maybe you have one email that you use for one kind of wallet, and then as you gain more, you then have what I'll call the cold storage wallet, which the way I think of it is, think of that as like your security deposit box, where it's much harder to access, but you only need those things in it at limited time. And then that way, you are building what I like to call layered security defense, meaning if a hacker really wants to get at the stuff, they have to go through multiple barriers. And that's the world we live in. So the bottom line is, how much inconvenience do you want to put up with when the potential consequence is you either lose all of it and there's no way to get it back? Because again, these are not FDIC insured assets.
Awesome. Awesome. AC, you're next.
Yeah, man, the recommendations that I was going to make, the other guys already touched on them. So I'll kind of build on that a little bit. I would say find a crypto mentor, somebody who's already familiar with this stuff to guide you through if you're brand new. Like that was incredibly helpful to me because of all these decisions you have to make, and to be able to protect these passwords and these keys thoroughly. Like I'm a security professional and I still get nervous every single time I open my crypto wallet on my computer and pull out these passwords, and they're long, and I've got to copy and paste them, and I'm like double and triple checking to make sure that I haven't somewhere picked up malware that's changing my clipboard data when it detects a crypto key or something. Like, I mean, this stuff is kind of nerve-wracking, which kind of brings me to my next point is insecurity in general. In the corporate world stuff, we struggle with usability. The UX of security is just not good in general still. And non-technical people, non-security people struggle with it. And the crypto space, we are still really, really early. And the best I could describe is it's a solution right now. It's not really a product yet. The crypto space in general, all of this stuff is still heavily in development. It's still changing, and it's still more of a solution that you have to put your own things together and wire stuff together and create kind of your own way of deploying that solution for your own workflows, because it really hasn't truly been productized in a standardized way to make it easy to use. So having that crypto mentor to help kind of guide you through paper wallets, online wallets, kind of best practices of use this for this, that for that, how you're going to set up your passwords and keep password some in one password manager, maybe another piece of it in another, and another piece in your head, and multi-factor authentication, tied in with that. It's all very difficult for non-technical people to wrap their heads around as they're trying to get it. And the stakes are so high because the blockchains are immutable. You can't roll them back. You can't just call somebody up and get support. And, so the comment of starting on the exchange is kind of good. You don't put any more money than you can afford to lose, because if it's on the exchange, it's not, you don't truly control the keys. Your coins are in a database still. The exchange can help you potentially. But not if you're making trades. Obviously, they can't necessarily roll back a trade. Like it's really, really different than what people are used to in the productized financial space. We're just not there yet.
It's really, really excellent points, all of them. I want to thank all of you for joining the panel today. I personally really enjoyed it. It was super interesting. So Scott, Justin, AC, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for everyone else who joined us today. I want to give you some time back. This is the third in the series on privacy and security in the metaverse. We have 3 more coming up. One is on identity coming up in April. We have another one on DAOs. Autonomous organizations, decentralized autonomous organizations. And then the final one is going to be on regulation in this space. Love for you all to join. And thanks again. Have a wonderful day. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline.